Hello and welcome back to Picks and Portraits. Over the past few months, we have done retrospectives on TV animation, looking at specific periods and networks. So far, we've seen the launch of Teletoon here in Canada, as well as the state of Fox Animation in 1999. Today, we are diving into the aesthetics and programming of Cartoon Network 1997. To put you in the proper headspace, if you were watching Cartoon Network around this time, you might have seen commercials for M&M Minis, America Online, Crash Bandicoot 2, the theatrical release of Flubber, and Space Jam on home video and pay-per-view. They pushed this hard, which makes sense. This was the year after Time Warner, a parent company of Warner Brothers, merged with Turner, as in Turner Broadcasting System. And I think at this point, it would probably be helpful to give some background on Cartoon Network, so we know how we got to 1997 and just why this year is so notable. It launched in 1992 as part of the Turner family of cable networks owned by media mogul Ted Turner. We covered Ted a bit in our colorization video. He was a cable pioneer responsible for TBS, also known as the Superstation, one of the first national cable networks. He later brought us Turner Network Television, TNT, TCM, Turner Classic Movies, and of course, the grandfather of 24-hour cable news, CNN. Cartoon Network came out of Turner wanting to replicate the CNN format with cartoons 24/7. Ted was no stranger to animation. His first venture into the medium was 1990's Captain Planet. Turner is something of an anomaly when it comes to billionaires, and this series was produced to promote environmentalism, one of his passions. Throughout the 80s and early 90s, he had also acquired several film libraries, either in part or full, which included many classic cartoons, MGM, Warner Brothers, and Hanna-Barbera. He actually acquired Hanna-Barbera Studios, which formed the basis of a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Much of Cartoon Network's early programming was comprised of these classic cartoons, along with other acquired programming. While Hanna-Barbera Studios was producing animated series for other networks, they did not explicitly create original content for Cartoon Network until 1993's The Moxie Show. Now, we missed this in our history of computer animation. This series followed an anthropomorphic dog and a flea, and featured the voices of Bobcat Goldthwait and Penn Jillette. I wish I could find more on it, but not a whole lot of it exists. It's never been replayed or preserved, it seems. However, the following year, Cartoon Network would produce an original series that I think informed the channel's identity and philosophy more than any other. Space Ghost was a 1960s superhero series produced by Hanna-Barbera. Reruns would run on the Cartoon Network. Following in the tradition of The Tonight Show and Late Night, Space Ghost Coast to Coast recast Space Ghost as a talk show host, with his former enemies Zorak and Moltar serving as his bandleader and producer. It was produced using animation from the original series, with guests being transmitted in via television. Seeing the choice of guests, it definitely appealed to an older / younger audience. Its demo was the young adult crowd. The humor was edgier, a lot more absurd with trippy visuals. This paved the way for Adult Swim, both in terms of content and tone, and was the first case of Hanna-Barbera taking boomer properties and repackaging them for Gen X, or millennials, which we'll be seeing a lot of. The early to mid-90s were a boom period for unique and creator-driven animation. Obviously Nicktoons, and even further back than that, MTV and Liquid Television, which we talked about years ago. Cartoon Network in its early days actually had a very similar vibe to MTV. This was likely on account of Fred Seibert. Fred Seibert was the original creative director at MTV and was hired in 1992 to head Hanna-Barbera Studios. His goal was to return the studio to the medium's roots and present theatrical-style shorts only on television. Seibert believed this would not only give the network content, but would lead to original series being developed from the shorts should the interest be there. The result was What a Cartoon! This began airing in 1995 and was originally known as World Premiere Toons and later the Cartoon Show. 48 shorts would be produced in the original run. The creative team behind it was comprised of many up-and-coming and established animators, including Jenny Tartakovsky, Craig McCracken, Ralph Bakshi, and even William Hanna, that's Hanna and Hanna-Barbera, with his final cartoon, Wind Up Wolf, and many others. Bakshi was apparently embarrassed and disowned his shorts. His definitely have a vibe different from the rest. Check out our recent Retro Features in Animation for Spicy City, which he would have been doing that same year, 1997. The animators will work on each other's cartoons, with the shorts ranging in style, tone, and quality. Some are great, some are pretty awful, but as Seibert hoped, What a Cartoon would be used as a launchpad for Cartoon Network's original series, with the first coming in 1996. Tartakovsky's Dexter's Laboratory was the most popular of the What a Cartoon shorts. They polled viewers, and this was the one that was responded to the most, and so it was the first to be developed. In it, a child genius, Dexter, experiments with inventions in a secret laboratory. Something usually goes wrong due to his sister Dee Dee's interference. He also competes with his nemesis and fellow child genius Mandark. The Dexter segments were supplemented by 2 other series of shorts, The Justice Friends and Dial M for Monkey. The Justice Friends was a parody of the Super Friends, with 3 superheroes living as roommates. They were Major Glory, Valhallen, and Krunk, send-ups of Captain America, Thor, and the Hulk. Dial M for Monkey was a similar idea. It cast Dexter's pet monkey as a secret superhero. It's adorable, and would occasionally cross over with the Justice Friends. The following year, 1997, the second series developed from what a cartoon debuted, Johnny Bravo. This was created by Van Partible and featured the titular character's futile attempts to pick up women. Post-Me Too, this comes off a little different. Granted, the behavior is not rewarded, but the crux of the show is more or less harassing women. Johnny's voice characterization is based off of Elvis. He has a classic cool look and still lives with his mother. He is also a textbook narcissist who is obsessed with his appearance, and when he's not chasing women, he spends his days hanging out with a young girl, Susie. A little creepy, but it was a different time. Also premiering in 1997 was David Feist's Cow and Chicken. Huge Ren and Stimpy vibes here. You can actually say that about a lot of the What a Cartoon shorts. That show's creator, and alleged pedophile, John Crickfalusi, was a consultant on the series. Cow and Chicken follow siblings, a cow and a chicken, as they navigate surreal and sometimes terrifying situations. This could be being wrongly imprisoned or forced to wear oppressive braces. Cow is naive and dumb, where Chicken is much more abrasive. The show relies heavily on gross-out humor, and even though it's called Cow and Chicken, the breakout star was the devil with a juicy ass, known as the Red Guy. He would serve as their antagonist in a variety of different roles. All 3 of these series had an edge to them and were controversial in their own ways, but Cow and Chicken pushed the boundaries, probably the most out of the bunch. A Season 2 episode, Buffalo Girls, only aired once due to eluding a group of lady bikers were lesbians by showing them literally munching carpet, a dysphemism for cunnilingus. Like Dexter's Lab, Cow and Chicken had a recurring segment, I Am Weasel. This featured an intelligent weasel, I Am Weasel, and a stupid baboon, IR Baboon, who are constantly at odds due to Weasel's success. There are appearances by Cow, Chicken, and the Red Guy, and this would be spun off into a full series in 1999. Series would also continue coming out of the What a Cartoon shorts, like the Powerpuff Girls in 1998 and Courage the Cowardly Dog in 1999. It was also where Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane got his start with the short Larry and Steve. Back to 1997, the programming block Toonami debuted that year, March 17th to be exact. This was Cartoon Network's action block, a broadcast from Ghost Industries and hosted by Moltar, now rendered in CGI. The original lineup of Toonami featured the 80s series Thundercats and Voltron. Thundercats was produced by Rankin Bass and animated by Topcraft in Japan, and Voltron was an adaptation or localized version of the anime Beast King Go Lion. Toonami would later introduce an entire generation of Westerners to anime, so this is fitting. The original lineup also included Cartoon Roulette, which was a compilation of Space Ghost, Birdman, and other old Hanna-Barbera superhero shows, as well as the Fleischer Superman shorts, and The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Now that last one is the one I was most into. It followed in Space Ghost's footsteps and reimagined Johnny Quest in the 90s. Of course, this meant more attitude in the addition of Quest World, a Tron-like CGI cyberspace the characters could jack into. Turner and Hanna-Barbera had high hopes for this series, and it spawned action figures and other merchandise, but interest did not live up to their expectations, and the show was cancelled in 1997. Aesthetically, in 1997, Cartoon Network were still in what is known as the checkerboard era, named after the design of their logo. This bled into promos and bumpers as well. So much of the network's identity came from their promos, interstitials, and vignettes. This year we had Shaggy and Droopy in a Pulp Fiction parody, the Royale with Cheese scene. Around Halloween there was also a parody of The Shining with Top Cat. Another crossover was one between Dexter and Speed Racer, promoting a new episode of Dexter that would debut in the middle of a Speed Racer marathon. They created this animation for the promo, featuring Dexter, Dee Dee, Mandark, racing speed. Spoilers, Dee Dee wins. Speaking of racing, Cartoon Network also had its own NASCAR race car around this time. There is a bunch of promos hyping it up. It was number 29, but I couldn't really find a lot of info on it. Feel free to chime in if you know something. Other segments included Meet the Cartoonists, which introduces you to the creators of all their original series, so Van Partible, Tartakovsky, and David Feist. They are all interviewed to promote and talk about their shows. There was also the Cartoon Gang, where a group of kids would sit around and talk about a topic related to cartoons and share their opinions. I'm sure these kids all grew up to be podcasters. Cartoon Network Responds, where fake fan mail would be answered in a humorous fashion. I found one highlighting just how popular Jim Carrey was in 1997. thing to do, which would walk you through doing some cartoony thing, like turning your friend inside out, training your eyes to come off your face, that sort of thing. Cartoons that never made it, featuring tunes that are flawed in some way to make them not good enough to appear on the Cartoon Network. I also found an ad for something called Matinee. Apparently throughout 1997, Cartoon Network would screen shorts and an animated feature at theaters across America, which I think is pretty cool. Needless to say, 1997 was a huge year for Cartoon Network with the release of their original series and the debut of Toonami. There is obviously a great deal of nostalgia for this network and this time. I feel like the generation who grew up on it, self-included, and the generation that has come after it are more inclined to be nostalgic because, well, look at the world we're inheriting. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm sure there's tons I missed. This concludes our unofficial Summer of 1997. You can hear more about my seasonal media association over on Patreon. That's also the only place to see Century of Schlock. Episode 3 is now available, looking at the relationship between European art films and Grindhouse, and how that translated to animated perversion. $5 a month gets you access to that, and keeps us going, so please consider supporting us if you can. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you're new here. As always, thank you so much for your interest in this channel, and thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.